He pushed through the glass door of Carter's Guns, as though he were carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. The bell chimed above his head, but the sound felt hollow, echoing against the rows of rifles and shotguns that lined the church. Walls. His name was Marcus Taylor, a 17-year-old who'd grown up tougher than most, but today his hands trembled like a leaf in a storm. He tried to steady himself, reining in the knot of anxiety twisting in his gut. The clerk glanced up from his counter, narrowed his eyes, and for a moment Marcus felt that familiar sting of suspicion wash over him. It all began when Marcus and his two friends had decided to visit the local gun store after school. They weren't criminals. They were just curious. They'd heard stories about how Carter's sold some of the finest weaponry in the county. They wanted to see for themselves what it was like behind glass cases filled with handguns that gleamed like polished silver in the afternoon sun. But Marcus, a black teenager in a predominantly white town, knew how the world judged him before he even spoke a word. He felt the weight of those judgments as sharply today as he ever had. He walked down the aisle, his eyes fixed on the display of semi-automatics. His friend Jamal hovered at his shoulder, whispering observations about recoil and magazine capacity. He looked at the prices, the small print about safety features and warranties. All of it fascinated him, until the clerk's voice broke through his concentration. "You buying something?" the man asked, his tone clipped. Marcus swallowed. "Just looking," he said, keeping his voice steady. But the clerk's gaze lingered on him a moment too long. A third friend, Alice, hovered by the counter, browsing. Holsters. She was white, her presence a stark contrast. When the clerk served her first, Marcus felt the sting of humiliation flare hot in his chest. He knew why. He used to be able to brush it off. Today, though, it felt like a blow to the gut. He tightened his jaw, scanned the rows of rifles again, determined not to let them see how small it made him feel. He reached for the grip of a compact pistol, his fingers brushing the cool metal. He had no intention of buying it, just wanted to feel it, to know what holding a firearm felt like. But as soon as his hand closed around the grip, the clerk snapped, "Hey, don't touch that." The words cut him off, harsh and sudden. He jerked his hand back, his heart pounding. Marcus bristled. "I was just looking," he said, his voice echoing in the hush of the store. The clerk's eyes narrowed. "You farmers around here go through town and think you can handle my merchandise? This is a business, not a playground." Marcus's face burned. Jamal exchanged a look with Alice, both of them stiffening as they realized the clerk's hostility wasn't aimed at them but squarely at Marcus. He backed away, turned on his heel, and headed for the door. He didn't stop until the glass door's cool surface hit him squarely in the chest. Outside, the afternoon sun was warm on his face, but he felt frozen, humiliated, stripped bare in front of people he barely knew. Jamal caught up to him. "Man, you okay?" he asked. Marcus took a breath, willed himself calm. "Yeah," he said, but the word tasted bitter. He expected everyone to laugh it off. He expected to shake it off with the same humor he'd used to deflect angry parents at basketball games or sneers in the cafeteria. But today it clung to him, sticky and raw, gnawing at his pride. On the ride home, he stared out the window, watching shadows lengthen across the pavement. He didn't speak much. His mother asked if he was all right. He shook his head, said nothing more. That night, he couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned, replayed the clerk's words over and over in his mind. He wondered if he'd flinch too. Soon, if his voice had wavered, if the clerk had seen the hesitation in his eyes and taken it as confirmation of his worst fears. He imagined confronting the man, telling him off, demanding an apology. He imagined it again and again until his anger burned too bright to ignore. The next morning, he woke early, laced up his sneakers, and jogged to the gun store. He figured if he faced the clerk again, maybe he could reclaim some of his dignity. He arrived to find the store still closed. The lights were off, the sign reading, "Closed for inventory." He leaned against the door, arms crossed, and waited. 45 minutes passed before he heard the click of the lock turning. The clerk emerged, bleary-eyed and holding a clipboard. He paused when he saw Marcus, his expression unreadable. Marcus squared his shoulders. "I came back," he said flatly. The clerk frowned. "Inventory. Come back later." Marcus didn't waver. "I want to talk." The clerk sighed and set his clipboard aside. "All right. You got 5 minutes." Inside, the store felt colder than the day before. The gun racks stood empty, the usual array of pistols and rifles missing as they'd been taken off display. For counting. The clerk stood behind the counter, his arms folded. The silence stretched between them. Thick and heavy. Marcus took a step forward. "I'm sorry I touched the pistol yesterday," he began, his voice steady. "But I was just looking. I didn't mean any harm." The clerk's jaw twitched, his eyes flicked away. Marcus pressed on. "Do you think I was going to steal it? You assumed the worst about me just because of how I look." The clerk sucked in a breath. "You got balls, kid," he said tonelessly. "Most folks your age, they'd walk away. But you came back." Marcus's chest tightened. "I came back because I'm tired of feeling like I have to hide. I'm tired of feeling like I'm less than because I'm black, because I'm young, because I don't fit what you expect. I want you to know who I am. I want to earn your respect." The clerk's eyes softened. He ran a hand through his hair. "Marcus Taylor, right? Jamal's friend?" Marcus nodded. "That's me." The clerk leaned forward, resting his arms on the counter. "Look, kid, you got guts. Some might call it stupidity, but I respect it. I reacted like a fool yesterday. I'm sorry." Marcus felt something lift from his chest, a warmth spreading through him. He wasn't used to apologies from strangers, especially not ones who'd looked at him with suspicion. "Thank you," he said quietly. The clerk reached under the counter and pulled out a small display pistol, the same model Marcus had reached. "4." He placed it on the counter between them. "Take a look," he said. "Hold it. Feel how it balances." Marcus extended his hand, his fingers trembling as they closed around the grip. It felt familiar in his palm now, and he lifted it carefully, taking in the weight, the cool steel against his skin. They spent the next hour talking. The clerk, whose name he learned was Greg Carter, explained the mechanics of the pistol, its safety features, the proper maintenance. Marcus asked questions, and Greg answered, his tone patient. He showed Marcus how to load dummy rounds for training, how to check the chamber, how to hold the pistol with proper stance. Outside, the sun crawled across the sky, inching toward evening, but inside the store, time felt suspended. At one point, Marcus caught Greg watching him, a small smile playing at the corner of his mouth. "You got a natural grip," Greg said. "You're going places, kid." Marcus laughed, a sound that felt light and new in his chest. "Thanks." When Marcus finally set the pistol back on the counter, it was with a sense of pride he hadn't expected. He looked up at Greg. "Thank you," he said again. Greg nodded, his face thoughtful. "You earned it," he said. As Marcus walked out of Carter's Guns that evening, the bell chimed behind him, but this time it felt like a victory. Jamal and Alice were waiting outside. They saw him emerge with a grin splitting his face. "Man, you look different," Jamal said. Marcus shrugged. "I feel different." Alice bumped his shoulder. "So, did you buy it?" Marcus laughed. "No, but I learned more today than I ever expected." They walked down the sidewalk together, the evening air cool on their skin. Overhead, the streetlights flickered on, casting long shadows. Marcus felt light, free of the weight he'd carried the day before. He thought about the clerk's apology, about the hour they'd spent together, about how he'd stood up for himself and found respect in return. He knew the world wasn't always fair. He knew there'd be other doors that closed in his face, other assumptions made because of the color of his skin or the way he dressed. But today he'd taken a step forward, claimed a piece of himself that the world tried to discount. And that step felt like the start of something much bigger. As they turned the corner onto Maple Street, Marcus lifted his chin and breathed deeply. The night stretched out before him like a promise. The road ahead might be rough, but he knew now that he could face it. He'd walked into that gun store humiliated, but he'd walked out empowered, and no one could ever take that away.